there are a lot of NBA teams that reportedly could be searching for a center this year in the offseason. One of those options is going to be taken off the board as the Indiana Pacers and Myles Turner may be close to a contract extension, which makes sense with their run to the finals. We'll talk about what that means for him and the other teams that could be in a search for a center. We're also going to look at all the fallout from the Knicks firing Tom Thibodeau and reportedly some interesting names that they have on their head coaching search. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And this one comes from Matt Moore, who I know he's a polarizing person or pundit in a lot of these cases, but Matt Moore's been pretty solidly spot on here recently. With this blog, Hardwood Paroxysm, he writes about the NBA, and he talks about the Indiana Pacers and Myles Turner could be closer to extension than initially thought, saying this: I was really curious what the Pacers were going to do, given that they couldn't clear salary for Myles Turner's extension at the deadline. But it sounds like, regardless, he's not going anywhere. Word is the two sides are already close on an extension that would keep him in Indiana. What that means for the rest of the Pacers supporting cast is another question. And keep in mind, Myles Turner is one of the few players on this Indiana Pacers team that was drafted by the Indiana Pacers. Matter of fact, he was drafted 11 overall by the Indiana Pacers. So now that this team is going on a finals run, seems like regardless of what happens, they're going to want to lock in most of their core, and that includes Myles Turner, who has been a very big impact player for this team. You look at how Myles Turner has grown as a defender over his time there, things like that, and losing Myles Turner potentially for a team that just went on a finals run just doesn't make sense. So now that if they lock him in and they get this contract extension done shortly after the season end, wherever it does end for them, that puts them now in a situation where they have to look at what the future of the roster is going to look like. Now, luckily, the Indiana Pacers aren't in a position where they're dangerously close to the second tax apron. $39 million beneath the second tax apron, that's where they sit right now. And so they have considerable space in there. Matter of fact, they're $27 million below the first tax apron, which is the luxury tax apron where that used to be. So, that's what it comes down to. And when you look at this Pacers team, most of their team is locked in, most of their core. Halliburton, Siakam, Nembhard, Obi Toppin, Nesmith, TJ McConnell, Benedict Mathurin, Jarace Walker, all those players are all locked in to contracts at going into next season. So you don't even have to ask your questions about that. Myles Turner is one of the biggest free agents that they have. Of course, guys like James Johnson, who's important to their culture and things like that he matters. But so this Pacers team is in a position where it makes sense for them to go ahead and lock him in, keep him in the building, and just let the chips fall where they may. But this is going to send a shift because there were some teams that had Myles Turner on their board and that were ready to make a big move for Myles Turner if it came down to that. Now, luckily, there are going to be some centers that are available. Daniel Gafford seems like he's going to be available by the Dallas Mavericks for trade, not as a free agent signing, of course. You got Clint Capella out there as a veteran option for some teams that may just need a rebounder and a lob threat. You got players like that. So there are going to be some centers available. Nikola Vucevic is available by the Chicago Bulls, even though I don't really know who's going to want that. But listen, it was always going to be unlikely that the Indiana Pacers moved on from Myles Turner. That just is what it is. It was always going to be an unlikely scenario for that. You look at what he averaged last year: 15.6 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, 2 blocks, 1.5 assists, shooting 48% from the field and 39% from three. That's not easy production to just to replace. It just isn't. So keeping Myles Turner sounds like a good move there, and that's going to now shift kind of the free agent market on anybody who's wanting a center. There are not going to be a lot of options out there. It just does not seem like a lot of options are going to be out there overall, which, of course, Kristaps Porzingis is another player that's also available that could be gotten this offseason. When you look at it, Brook Lopez is another one. Naz Reid is probably going to be a big name out there in that. Mo Wagner, potentially, even with his injuries. If the Magic don't pick up his team option, maybe that's a case. So you have some options there for you. Also, some players that could end up opting out, like Andre Drummond, with all the craziness going on with the 76ers. So you have some options out there. Who's going to bite? Who's going to be the center to move on that market? That remains to be seen. But Myles Turner seems to be on path to be locked in by the Indiana Pacers, and that's just the right move to make here. The Pacers have been such a great story in this one. And as they continue, like, get ready for the finals, which starts tomorrow, crazy enough, as they get ready to look at what that's going to look like for this team and wherever the chips fall, even though they're underdogs against the OKC Thunder, any team was going to be an underdog against the OKC Thunder. But if they, however this finals ends up finishing for them, they have now a core that they can believe more in. And of course, every team that makes it to the finals typically then looks at their team and saying, all right, what tweaks can we make, especially if they don't win the finals? What tweaks can we make to then get this team in a stronger position? And with East starting off without Jason Tatum probably not going to be there the entirety of the year. We don't know what's going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers. As a matter of fact, Jared Allen's another player that could eventually become available, in this offseason if some rumors are to be believed. So we'll see. But overall, I think Myles Turner has definitely earned an extension with the Pacers. And if he gets one, which seems likely as of this reporting, hopefully they continue to have success because they've been very fun to watch in this playoff series. Even though, people who aren't happy that the Pacers made it to the finals and are complaining about this finals, I hope that they don't watch. And the reason why, let us who just enjoy watching basketball, let us watch it and talk about it. If the casuals aren't into it, I know that's not great for the NBA, but it's cool. I would love to have a finals to just the hoops talkers get to talk about it. But with that said, man, let's get into the next one. The Spurs continue to be teased as a target for a potential destination for Kevin Durant. This one comes from Arizona Sports that say this: the team that I heard last night in speaking to somebody pretty close to the situation with KD is keep your eye on the Spurs. KD could have some interest in the Spurs. That could be a good landing spot for him with Fox, Wemby, and an upcoming team on the rise. That's a great defensive anchor on their team. That has a great defensive anchor on their team and a terrific young player in Stephon Castle. What could the Suns get? You might have to take Harrison Barnes back to make it work. You could get Devin Vassell, who is a very young player. I expect that a KD deal would happen right before the draft because you want to include draft capital in the deal. So a KD trade will come up this month sometime before the draft, probably close to the draft if it's going to happen. Now, we talked a little bit about that yesterday in the Rockets and their potential pursuit and the Suns kind of prioritizing getting their own picks back from the Rockets, but the Spurs were the first team that was mentioned as being interested in Kevin Durant. Now, the package that you get back in that. A package built around Devin Vassell makes some sense for the Suns that probably are going to want a young player. I know they're still trying to regroup around Devin Booker. You're still going to have Bradley Beal there with his no trade clause, but the picks that the Spurs would have to offer on top of a very good young player in Devin Vassell could make a lot of sense for the Suns as they look to kind of reshape their roster. Doesn't seem like they're going to go a full blow up, right? Even though, as I say every time, I do think that they should look to move Devin Booker too. I think that just makes a lot of sense for that team, but I'm going to shut up about it. They seem locked in with Devin Booker. But Bartero is the last name of the writer there, is somebody who seems to be pretty plugged in with things that are going on with the Suns. So if he says it, never take any writer's writing as 100% truth, but I do believe that is something that is at least being talked about around there, right? So overall, we'll see what happens. The San Antonio Spurs are one of those teams, much like the Houston Rockets, that seem like they're apt to make a big move, whether that's for Giannis, whether that's for Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is from Texas, so that can make some sense there. But it seems like you're going to see this team make a big step forward in a move to try to get a talent in here with Wemby, with De'Aaron Fox, even though I personally think that's jumpstarting their process a little too early. But hey, if they want to take their shot at it, they want to take their move at it, great. Go ahead and do it. You just better be successful in it. And what that could do as far as putting Wemby and these young players that you keep on your roster, putting them in a position where they're getting the taste and learning how to win early. Even though they've been fighting, they've been competing, but in a situation where they're getting playoff runs and those type of things, with getting Kevin Durant there, I think that's a good place. The question is how much better does that make the Spurs? Do they go into a contending status? Like, I think if the Houston Rockets added Kevin Durant, they go into a contending status, which they already have one of the best records in the NBA. If you add Kevin Durant to the Spurs, do they have that same level of upside then? That's a question here, but that's a question that we'll talk about when and if the deal goes down. But it seems like the San Antonio Spurs, with their draft capital and young players that they have to include, they're looking to make a move this offseason. Is that move going to pay off for them? That's the question that's here. I know that we've had quite a few Spurs fans coming to the channel recently, And, they have kind of shared my mindset on why go all in now. But there have been some on the outlier that said, no, if the Spurs want to take their shot, why shouldn't they take their shot like other teams have and trying to go for a title now? And if you feel that that's what this move can get you, hey, I understand it. I guess we'll see what happens with the Spurs, what decision they make. But let me know your thoughts on it down below, of course. All right, let's get into it. We got quite a bit of things to get into with the Knicks. Of course, the Knicks firing Tom Thibodeau yesterday. They kind of surprised a lot of people. Initially reported by Shams Charania, of course. Well, it seems like we now know kind of what went into that decision. This one also comes from Shams that says this. As soon as the season ended, they started meetings internally. That's James Dolan, the Knicks owner, and Leon Rose, the president. They believe the best path for this team to take the next step to win a championship was they needed a new voice. So Leon Rose and James Dolan came to the decision this morning that they were going to part ways with Tom Thibodeau. He's fired as their head coach. And, it is what it is. He's done greatness for that organization, right? Shams says that in his reporting. And the success that he had, back-to-back 50-plus win seasons, and almost 60% win percentage being there with the New York Knicks team. Tom Thibodeau had a really good time there. But I think it does put in the fact that this Knicks team sees an opportunity. Keep in mind, this is a franchise that hadn't had much success over the last 20, 25-ish years. They've had some, but not a lot. So if they feel like this is the time where they can change the voice and get further, starting to sound like what the Golden State Warriors did with Mark Jackson. By the way, check out my mini documentary on the channel talking about Mark Jackson, why he's not in the NBA, if he'll ever get back in the NBA. But shameless plug there. It's in the channel. But with that said, it does seem like overall, man, Jalen Brunson has defended Tom Thibodeau. I do think he's done wonders for Josh Hart. But now I think you just got to go and get the right guy. And that's what Jalen Brunson said. He says, is that a question right now? You just asked me if I believe he's the right guy. Yeah, come on. But he's gone now. So you got to go out and find the right guy, which leads us to the interesting list of candidates. Reportedly, the New York Knicks are interested in Jason Kidd, Ime Udoka, Johnny Bryant, Jay Wright. Those are the presumed candidates for the next head coach for the New York Knicks. Now, those first two names, that's really interesting because Jason Kidd and Ime Udoka are both locked in right now to where they are as a head coach, right? When you look at it, they're not available. And it seems like right now that that they are not going to be allowed to talk to it either. That Ime Udoka, the Houston Rockets are very happy with Ime Udoka. And if he were to request, if the Knicks were to request permission to speak with it, it would be rejected immediately, right? That's the reporting that came out of that from Mark Stein. If the Knicks ask for that, they're going to be rejected immediately. Now, with Jason Kidd, is there going to be something there? It seems like there's also going to be a big task to even talk to Jason Kidd if that's what they want to do. So it doesn't seem like those two being on the Knicks board is going to happen, but we'll see. Overall, it doesn't seem it, right. Mark Stein saying this. A similar, I'll read the whole thing. One source with knowledge of the Rockets' thinking told the Stein line categorically that permission to speak with Udoka would be rejected if the Knicks requested it. A similar response would be expected from the Mavericks, but a read on their position as conclusive as Houston's could not be immediately confirmed. Kidd has 2 seasons left on his contract extension he received during last season's playoffs with the Mavericks in the midst of a run to the NBA Finals. Shout out to the Knicks for wanting to shoot high, right? Ime Udoka makes a lot of sense, but the Rockets aren't going to let you get him. Jason Kidd has had some success in Dallas. It makes some sense there. But overall, it does not seem like those are going to be the two guys. Now, Bryant, that's a guy that makes a lot of sense for the New York Knicks. I think Mike Malone makes a lot of sense for that team too. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up trying to get an interview when it's all said and done. But we'll see what happens with the Knicks. The Knicks coaching search is going to be one that's interesting to watch because the Knicks are in a really good spot with their roster, solid spot. And you want a coach with some experience. I think that's what the Knicks are probably looking for, is a coach with some experience. If you can get some championship experience, which would be Mike Malone, that would make some sense there as well. So I guess we shall see what the New York Knicks want to do with their head coaching position and who they decide to bring in. But hearing Jason Kidd and Ime Udoka's names on that list, that felt a little weird. But I guess we'll see what happens when it comes down to that one. It seems like also that the Knicks, in their pursuit of a Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo, does not seem like it's going to be something that's happening. It was rumored a little bit before, but according to Ian Begley of SNY, is that neither one could happen. So it seems like that's not going to be an option for the Knicks. If they're looking for somebody to kind of bail them out, that's not going to happen. Begley wrote this. The pie-in-the-sky scenario is that the Knicks trading for Milwaukee's Giannis Antetokounmpo, but that was the case before the firing of Thibodeau. As it was, the odds of New York landing Antetokounmpo were not good. To make that deal happen, Antetokounmpo would have to request a trade and ask Milwaukee to send him specifically to New York. Milwaukee would have to work with Antetokounmpo on sending him to New York, while stronger offers from other teams. So there are several massive hurdles in the way of Antetokounmpo to New York. The Knicks, like every other team, will monitor the Antetokounmpo situation, but so much has to fall in place for them to even have a shot at landing him. What about Kevin Durant? I believe it's unlikely that the Knicks would ultimately pull the trigger on a trade for him. And when you look at the number of picks that the New York Knicks gave up to bring in Mikal Bridges and Karl-Anthony Towns, it already didn't seem likely that they would be able to turn around and flip one of those guys or any assets to make a move the size of Kevin Durant or Giannis Antetokounmpo. So it doesn't seem like that pursuit's there. And what Begley kind of points to in this is saying that now with moving on from Tibbs, the focus is more so on getting a guy in here who can really bring together what the Knicks are trying to do and maybe execute it a little bit better. Go better into your depth. Get those guys ready to perform rather than wait till you have to use them and then they haven't had a lot of experience playing for you. So I think that that's the thing that the Knicks are going to focus on, hoping that coaching is going to be the thing that can take them to that next level, and we shall see what's going to be done there. Last topic of the day before we get up out of here, that's around Domantas Sabonis. There have been some talks that Domantas Sabonis could be available this offseason, with the Sacramento Kings being in a I would think the best way to word it is weird spot with their roster, right? Making changes to their head coaching situation and things like that. It seems like this team, after the De'Aaron Fox trade, was set up to maybe make a bunch of moves after that. But now it seems like that may not be true as much anymore for the Sacramento Kings, that the new GM, Scott Perry, are plotting different venues in a different direction that they want to take the franchise, but Sabonis, and the long-term outlook of him staying there, feels like something that's probably going to be staying around. So if anyone thought that Sabonis was going to be available, seems like that may not happen right now, and that they may ultimately end up staying around. Now, we do know that, like Toronto, other teams are looking for to go big fish hunting, so to say. And while they've been mentioned for like Giannis and stuff like that, teams could pivot. Now, could a team make an offer for Sabonis that could be too good for them to pass up? Maybe. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So we shall see and continue to monitor it. But Sabonis seems like another name that people could have been interested in for a center that may just not be available and may end up staying with this current team. But let me know what you guys think on that and everything down below. Make sure you're following us at NBA Central Pod. Hell, you can follow me at CEO Hayes. You can, if you want to leave us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBACentralPod@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything basketball related, and I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.